Let's go over the phone lines and speak to the minority in Parliament. Isaac Adongo joins us via telephone. Honorable, good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you and good morning to your listeners.
The decision to go to the IMF, ringing sweet bells in your ears?
Well, it has been the most sensible thing to do for quite a while. Obviously, anytime you advise them, they refer to us as naysayers when the evidence was quite clear that we had bent our fingers with some very bizarre and experimental policies, and it wasn't sustainable to continue on that trajectory. But the Minister of Finance was quite positive that he had one last strategy, which was the e-levy. And so everybody gave him the benefit of the doubt that the e-levy was going to address the problems. Unfortunately, we are hearing that the e-levy is not providing more than 9% of the original yield that was estimated. Under the circumstances, the question is, what is the alternative? What are able to find there any options other than the right decision they've taken late in the day?
But with all the delay and going to the IMF, what sort of posturing should government have going to the fund?
Well, so government must have a program. You can't walk into an IMF negotiations without being clear of what options or what solutions that you want to implement, that you want to be assisted. Don't forget that when the NDC was going to the IMF, we had done quite a lot of work and gathered experts to advise on how we should approach the program. And so essentially, because we arrived with the homegrown policies that we had put together, it was very easy to get a program. It was very easy for the IMF to accept most of the measures that we had spelled out. At this moment in time, government doesn't seem to have a clear blueprint on what it wants. So it needs to quickly work around, get very senior members of our society with expertise to brainstorm and come up with what would assist us in our negotiations so that we go to the program with a position of strength. In the absence of that, you're going to have a program basically imposed on you in terms of the measures, and that may not necessarily work. The other challenge and the most difficult decision that His Excellency the President has to take is that he needs a complete upgrade on his team at the Ministry of Finance. The Minister for Finance and his Minister of State, Charles Dubois, basically don't have what it takes to lead an effective IMF program. The market is arm in arms against them. They have lost credibility in the eyes of the international community, in the eyes of the investor community, and even in the eyes of the multilateral institutions. So a clear sign of commitment and a clear sign and signal of good faith in this negotiation must start with the removal of the Minister for Finance, the removal of the Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance, Charles Dubois, to give Ghana a clean bill of health to begin these conversations in a way that allows the IMF to have some faith and trust. Don't forget that these are the people who have spoken extensively about their view on the IMF. You cannot say that going to the IMF surrenders the sovereignty of our country. We are a very proud group of people, and going to the IMF would mean that we are going to run a government as if we are not a country, a proud group of people. And today you are leading that conversation. Apart from the fact that you basically have demonstrated lack of capacity as a Minister of Finance and as a Minister of State in charge of Finance. Of the Minister of Finance. So these two people, as a starting point, must exit the ministry immediately, and that is something that the President must send out as a signaling of intent to be serious and committed to an IMF program. That is not negotiable.
Now, Honorable, before we come to, I'm going to ask you to talk more on the personalities or the individuals leading the negotiations with the IMF, say the Finance Minister and the Minister of State in charge of Finance. But the program that we should be going to the IMF with, let's do some specifics in there. Are you able to give us some details of what you would expect to see in this particular program?
Well, it is a government program. The IMF does not arrive in a country with a program in hand. The IMF comes to you to understand your problem. the IMF comes to you to walk you through, to have some thought process on your own as to what you think the solution should be like and what support you need to implement those programs. But everybody knows that this government has been running some of the most reckless experimental programs that basically have wasted our money and which has created such a hole that we are in. I don't understand why the president is still keeping trade development authorities to be wasting almost 1.5 billion on it. Clearly, that should have been scrapped in the budget. Okay, and that would have saved the 1.3 billion, the 5 billion already. I don't understand why the government will run a program that is called, what do you call it? It's called One Village, One Dam, that creates ponds and dugouts that are not fit for purpose. That should not be started at the first place. Why should a government that is in this difficulty allocate 1 billion Ghana cedis to the office of the finance minister under other government obligations in the name of an omnibus program called Ghana Cares or Bantapa program? Does the Ministry of Finance run education? Does the Ministry of Finance run construction of roads? So why would you put such an amount of money? So that should have been scrapped in the first place. So 1 billion would have been paid. The Ministry of Finance in this difficulty has allocated 1 billion Ghana cedis to Ghana Amalgamated Trust. To do what? Clearly, in this budget alone, if you ask me to sit with Ken Oforiatta, I can scrap 10 billion of useless spending in the budget that wouldn't have taken them to the IMF. And the IMF will be very important, will be interested in finding out what is the value that you derive for the people of Ghana with every single expenditure that you have. And mind you, that in difficult times like this, the posture of the IMF is to take care from the poor and to protect social safety net. So programs targeting the poor, I assure you, will never be removed by the IMF. At worst, the IMF will want to improve targeting of the poor, so that that program does not end up, supporting rich people instead of the poor. So proper targeting is always. I heard someone talk about LEAP and being afraid of LEAP. LEAP was being funded by the World Bank.
Right.
Okay, I worked on a program at the Ministry of Local Government as a financial consultant to Ghana, the Ghana Opportunities Program, funded by the World Bank, which main focus was to make sure LEAP is more aggressive, properly targeted, and properly funded. So there's no way an IMF program, in a time when the people are suffering, will be cancelling programs that are pro-poor. Pro-poor programs would be the first priority of an IMF to protect. But it is part of the scheme to create the narrative and to instill some level of fear in the people as if the IMF coming is all doomed for the poor. What is important is that the poor must have an economy in order for them to be protected. We currently just don't have an economy. And so if there's anything that will bring back an economy that supports the poor, it is very important that we support it. What is the challenge now is that their ego, for a very long time, made it difficult for them to take the right decision at the right time. And here we have arrived at a point where I can assure you that it is going to be a very tough couple of months in the negotiation of this program, because we basically have arrived at a point where we just don't have the capacity to negotiate at a point of strength.
Now, these negotiations will be led by the finance minister. Of course, the authorization was given to him as finance minister to lead engagements with the IMF. As an individual, Ken Oforiatta, what do you make of him? And then, of course, there are calls for his dismissal and its effect of boosting investor confidence to some level. Do you ascribe to this?
I told you right away that a program led by Ken Oforiatta will be useless, it will be meaningless, it will be an exercise in futility. It will have no commitment to the very milestones that will be agreed. And the IMF, the World Bank, and the multilateral institutions are quite clear. They are very quite clear about the status of Ken in any such arrangement. And so to ask him to even lead the process sparks of some level of hypocrisy, and a government is that indecisive. The president should have followed this letter with a removal of Ken Oforiatta and Charles Edubwahen in order to give Ghana a chance to negotiate an acceptable program that is workable. So to say that he's the one leading negotiations is to tell me that you don't want a program. You are just pretending you don't want a program. If you really want a program, Charles Edubine should have gone yesterday. Ken Oforiatta should have gone a year ago. To still be sitting there and pretending that you are having an IMF negotiation with these guys is basically to try and play games with the IMF.